Thank you. Our ITSM focus for Geneva was all about productivity of the user. In fact, all users, from requesters through fulfillers to executives. In my demo, I'm going to largely focus on the former, the requesters and fulfillers, and Paul will show more the service desk through executives. For Geneva, we made some big strides to advance productivity. I'm going to show you some of the change improvements that we've made to change, and then a couple of other cool tools that are productivity enablers. Before I get there, I want to talk about the sidebar just a little bit. It's part of our new UI. You can see that this is our normal kind of a menuing system that allows you to quickly navigate to wherever it is that you want to go. We've also introduced the notion of history, so I can quickly jump back to something that I was looking at some time ago. But my favorite is the way that we display favorites. You can identify what it is you want here. You can order them however you'd like, name them however you'd like, and then refer to them frequently, which is what I do. So they're on the side. If you see me navigating to them, I wanted you to know what they were. So many of our improvements for ITSM this release were around change. So I'll show you those now. Obviously, change is paramount in adoption of ITIL. If you're not managing your change, then it's hard to maintain your environment or manage your environment. And of course, because there's multiple changes every day, it seems difficult to be able to approve and manage every single one of them. And ITIL, of course, responds to that with the notion of a standard change. So you'll see that as you create a new change now, there's normal run-of-the-mill change, standard, which is your pre-approved, CAB-approved change, or emergency, which is a change that's not going to require approval, but will go directly to the CAB process. I'm going to jump into the standard change to just show you what our library looks like. So this would be the presentation of the standard change library. You could have whatever categories that you wanted, and obviously whatever standard changes that you'd want. This is just some examples that we have here. I'm going to go ahead and choose the server standard change. The process, of course, is that you take a change that exists, or you can take a change that exists, and you can propose that it becomes a standard change. The system administrator will have set up a bunch of required fields where you need to give enough identification information to the CAB as to what that standard change will be comprised of. And then when they accept it, it will end up looking a bit like this. Now, all of these parts that are grayed out have to do with the things that the CAB has already approved that you don't have the luxury of changing. If you need to change them, then you need to go back and make a normal change because it's not a standard change. So I'll just go through the process of a standard change really quickly. So let me just get to a Windows server. Okay, great. We'll assign this to the network group. Okay, I want to show you something not work and explain why I've done that. But let's say that we want to make this change for Friday morning at 1 a.m. 1:45 actually, and have it end at 2:45. Now I'm going to go ahead and try to schedule this. But what we've done from a productivity standpoint is we've actually embedded the conflict detection right into the process. So this has done two things that draw your attention to. One, it's skipped all the way from new to scheduled, which is what our intent is. We've passed. We don't need to get approval. We don't need to get authorization because this is pre-approved through the CAB. However, we've identified that there's a conflict here. Now, if I go down to the conflict, I could drill into here and discover that it was because this doesn't hit the window, the maintenance window. So if I just change it to Saturday, now it will. But what I wanted to point out is the productivity improvement of not having to go somewhere else to check to see if there's conflicts. As soon as I saved the record, it did that checking for me automatically. Now when I go ahead and update it, it's just carried right along because it satisfied all of the requirements. So that's the changes that we've made in change to increase the productivity, adding the standard change and the emergency change. Everything that I showed you right now is out of the box, so there's no requirement of configuration. It's a great improvement to the product, we believe. But that's not all. There's a couple of other very, very interesting things that I'd like to draw your attention to. One of which is our new service portal. Now, the service portal is a Bootstrap AngularJS product, so it is responsive out of the box. It is extremely configurable by the end user, and it is not particularly technically difficult to configure. Much easier than our past offering, in fact. We've always had industry leading employee portals, and we've actually now just we've outdone ourselves. Even in the search, if we say, how does the search work? Search works much like you would search if you were searching for anything on the web. If you're on Amazon, if you're doing Google, you just type in what your search term is and it sort of mashes up everything that's there. You don't have to go through any sophisticated navigation tree in order to find where the iPhone is probably in mobility and the MacBook is probably in hardware. It doesn't matter. We're just going to search for it and find it all. Of course, it's not just requests that the self-service portal is for. It's also for many other things, such as creating an incident. And so, of course, we support that. You can basically put whatever you'd like on this page. We call them widgets. You can include as many of them as you would like. It's not quite as interesting, however, as the live chat. Let's say that this employee just decided that they were going to use live chat to make the service desk aware that they've got some sort of an issue. So in this case, perhaps they're having a problem with their email, and they basically start a chat. Now, what happens on the back end is I will go in and accept that conversation that's in the support queue, and I've just started having a conversation with this specific user. Now, really what this user is asking for is an incident. So I can respond to them, but also I can, with one click, create an incident. So it's taking the information that I know. Oops, I'm going to add to it with the information that it doesn't necessarily know. I'd put more detail than this, but whatever. And I will submit it. This chat sidebar is our Connect product, and it's actually threaded throughout our entire platform. All of our resources have access to Connect. Now, what's happened? I've created the incident. It's in my Connect thread, which means that John Ferguson, the requester, can actually see it. Now, I may also want to pull in another resource, and so I'm just going to pull in Sally Techno. I know that she's my ITIL user. As I've added her, side note, Brian will now be logging in as Sally and I'll be able to see all the interactions. We can see that she's actually responding to my, I can add her and you can see her responding to my issue, and we can see her presence up here. Oh, and she said to go ahead and add her to the ticket. Okay, yeah, that's outstanding. So let me just go in here and add the service desk and add Sally. Okay, and what's happened? We've just got this big red alert box that's telling us that in the meantime, Sally went ahead and assigned herself. So we had a bit of a manual race condition there, and she's won. But this is all part of presence. This is letting you know that this record is actually being changed while you're in it, which is an extremely beneficial kind of an item to know, and it's extremely good from a productivity standpoint to have that level of awareness. Okay, that's still not all. Let's assume, just for the sake of this illustration, that we did not assign the incident to Sally right then and there. There's another way that we could do it that's very compelling. So here is what we call visual task boards. A visual task board is really just a visualization of the list. So here's a list as we might normally see it. And we can visualize that in a Kanban sort of format with swim lanes. So here we see our email is not working, and we know that Sally has said that she would be happy to do it. Here's Sally here. I can see the little green dot. She's actually online. Now, if I wanted to, I could actually just drag Sally and assign her directly into that activity, or I can drag the incident over and drop it into her swim lane, and the system will assign her automatically. So it's not just for assigning resources. This visual task board is actually for managing all of your work. You can make VTB, we call them, off of almost any list. And depending on how it's grouped, in this case, it's grouped by the assignee. If it was a list of incidents and it was grouped by the state, as I was dragging things from state to state, it would actually be updating the state of the specific incident. So it can be extremely productive. This is not the full comprehensive level of information. Unfortunately, with WebEx, sometimes you have to show smaller amounts, but you can actually turn on a few more pieces of information, such as showing the SLAs. So when you show an SLA, you actually, for some reason it's not actually showing them. You can actually see the SLA bar. Of course, my data is terrible. Sorry about that, but normally you'd see this progress bar as how it was proceeding towards an SLA. So it's pretty exciting, pretty interesting stuff. We think that this different set of tools will really increase productivity of the users and might even change the way that they interact with their customer as a service desk. I hope you found this compelling. Thank you very much for your time.